Hello and welcome. My name is Marc Blatstein, the physician founder of Physician Presentence Report Service. We are physician prison consultants. My phone is 240 888 7778 up here in the corner, and I answer and return all of my own calls. That is my cell phone. Today, I'm going to be addressing providers, healthcare executives, life sciences. Department of Justice started when Pam Bondi and first took the job last year in 2024, 2025, and the Department of Justice is focused on healthcare as its number one target. And so, whereas in 2025 they were addressing successfully false claim acts, which would be turned out to be financial penalties. There's also going to be now we're looking at potential criminal exposure, which involves prison time in addition to the False Claim Act or financial penalties. And so, are you going to be prepared? If you work in healthcare as a physician or executive compliance officer, 2026 in the eyes of the Department of Justice, they're going to expand on what's been working in 2025. And they have made healthcare fraud its top enforcement priority. The line between civil, which False Claims Act, and is now that becoming thinner, drifting towards including criminal liability. So that's a big deal. Here is the topic because if in fact you go to trial and you win, we're all happy. If you go to trial and lose or you plea, then it's prison time. There really is not much in the area of diversion sentencing. Topics. What do you do when you learn that the FBI has been asking questions? I don't care if you're a provider, a hospital CEO executive, an administrator of a hospital, um, if you're a researcher, life sciences, if you're importing durable medical equipment into the country. If you hear that the FBI has been asking questions, their case against you is basically almost complete. Second, I'm going to touch on is physician or medical director compensation. These are enforcement triggers. Being a doctor, no matter your specialty, it does not matter. You can be a chiropractor, you can be an orthopedic surgeon, you could be the best heart surgeon in the world. It's not going to matter. Medicare Advantage, large. This probably has a very big target because people who not all, but it's sold and marketed as an alternative to Medicare, which it is, but it is not Medicare. And I mean, people who are snowbirds, I'm sure you've had patients where they go to Florida from the Northeast or the northern part of the country in the winter, they go to Arizona, they go to Florida, and they come back because they're all upset that the doctors wouldn't take their Medicare. When you have Medicare Advantage, it not has limitations. Wound care. This can be where civil and criminal charges converge. Telehealth, pharmaceutical, opioids. Opioids are still a big deal. It's under heavy fire and heavy scrutiny by the Department of Justice, and rightly so. Artificial intelligence is going to be a False Claim Act multiplier. Nothing that you do is really going to be hidden. If you are a provider, electronic medical records can be, your billing, all this is in the open market that artificial intelligence can find, especially when they compare your numbers against your peers. If you have contracts, there were agreements with other doctors, it's not unusual. I mean, it started 1985-ish when I went into practice initially. The Amendment was a big deal. I mean, pharmaceutical reps could no longer, bring us food in the office, but it has grown in sophistication, and so everything that is being done, either that you're doing as either compliance officer, executive CFO, CEO of a system, hospital system, durable medical equipment importer, researcher. Artificial intelligence is working 24/7, 365 in the background. They don't sleep. Whistleblowers are becoming another. I mean, they're gaining. I think today is what day is it? February 4th. It was on the news that Pam Bondi awarded $1 million to an anonymous whistleblower. Prevention, though, can hopefully save you financially. It could keep you, I don't know, out of prison, but it could. Or if you're actually found criminally guilty, may go ahead and lessen your exposure. You're expecting to be indicted. What do you do first? If you hear that the FBI has been asking questions, I'm just here to tell you that the case against you is mostly complete. By the time you learn, you're either going to get a target letter, you may get a visit at your office, you may get a visit at your home. If you get a visit at your home, be very polite, take their card and say, I need to talk to counsel. Can I get back to you? You don't want to start having that conversation up front. Office of the Inspector General, these are enforcement actions that they're currently doing. Where Syracuse man pleads guilty to operating kickback scheme. Southern District of Florida, two home health care providers agree to pay $700,000 to resolve self-referral allegations. This is real, and I'll just open one of these so that you can see I'm not making it up. Medicare Advantage is going to be a target I'm going to talk to, but this is the enforcement actions. Deerfield man sentenced to a Delafield man sentenced to 18 months in prison for conspiracy to pay healthcare kickbacks. It's a big deal, and it's not to be taken lightly. Civil is monetary, as I said, criminal is prison time. And these are just the three I just went ahead and reviewed with you. A former Signal physician to stand trial on 23 counts of Medicaid fraud. They're out there and looking. Physician or medical director compensation. It's an enforcement trigger. And so here is basically the Department of Justice continues to focus on physician arraignments that function as improper referral inducements, particularly medical director or independent contractor agreements. So without getting into the legal part of this, I'll show you this in a moment. Riverside Hospital, it's a clear warning. Department of Justice alleges the hospital paid a physician more than $450,000 under medical director agreements to induce referrals, generally generating millions in Medicare payments. Internal communications, they read them. My takeaway, if physician compensation tracks referrals explicitly or implicitly, you can be exposed under this anti-kickback statute, Stark Law, and the False Claims Act. And so just so that you can see this, I'm going to open it up. This is the indictment. And the defense wants a jury trial. And so these can be won, but make sure that you have a criminal defense attorney that practices full-time in federal criminal court and has extensive knowledge with cases like this. You don't feel bad, about asking for references or asking specific questions, because you don't want to go into court, against prosecutors that know more than you do. Because right now they know more than you know, and your lawyer knows. But you need to depend on having a great legal team, and that all comes down to interviewing lawyers and law firms that this is what they do specifically. Medicare Advantage. It's the largest target in the room. Managed care is the fact sheet I'll open up, especially Medicare Advantage is now in the DOJ's most aggressive False Claim Act battleground. In the United States, in this particular case against Kaiser Permanente, Kaiser agreed to pay $556 million to resolve allegations. I'm not sure how this is worded means that they were found guilty, or they just had this off at the past and made an agreement. Independent Health agreed to pay up to $98 million. Sol Medical Group paid over $60 million. There was another intervention against Aetna, Alliance, and Humana, the national brokers. The bottom line is that risk adjustment coding practices and utilization controls are no longer a compliance issue. They are litigation and criminal exposure issues. And so I'm going to go back up here so that you can see this is where I got this information. Is this the fact sheet? And this came up, from the Department of Justice, healthcare fraud, managed care, independent health, Sol Medical Group, 60 million. Humana's in here. Not only that, they went through prescription drugs, which we'll talk about, Teva Pharmaceuticals, Medisca Incorporated, Biohaven Pharmaceuticals, unnecessary services or substantial care. Your documentation needs to be squeaky clean, because the only way you can justify that what they're calling unnecessary services is through that, because that where they're necessary is through your documentation, and you can't go backwards on most medical I forget the term, electronic medical records, because everything they're time stamped. So back here, wound care is another one. Wound graft company owner sentenced for $1.2 billion in healthcare fraud, plus they had to pay $309 million. Wound care has emerged as a high-risk area of enforcement, particularly involving skin substitutes, where the Department of Justice is saying that they're medically unnecessary. Volra Wounds Physicians and Management, $45 million they agreed to pay. Orville Hospital, $10 million. They are literally going after these skin. You have a wound that won't close. There's a necessary need to have these skin substitutes or different graft materials available, especially if you can't use the patient's own skin. You can't, take a skin graft from one part to another. And so, CMS finalizing these sweeping reforms to skin substitute payments. amid a rising costs. And so there's going to be common red flags. Telemedicine is driven prescribing, volume-based compensation, minimal patient exams, poor documentation, improper use of the graph. Your documentation needs to be squeaky clean. Even if it's not, it's never too late to start. Telemedicine, you just can't be prescribing willy-nilly, uh, over the net or over a video conference, but as long as you're documenting everything. Volume based is going to be, base compensation is going to be comparing you to other physicians in your area. Minimal patient exams. You need to have patient exams. There's the basic SOAP note. I don't need to go through with you, but you need to document all your encounters via, video phone, in person. Poor documentation, you're in trouble. Improper use of an allograph. I remember that when I was in practice 20 some years ago, that the reps were coming into our offices and doing a full court press. And a lot of these products are very helpful. The only way you're going to be able to separate yourself out from where they want to prosecute you is in your documentation. I can't impress upon you how important that is. Telehealth, pharma, opioids. With the need, they need to be they're under heavy fire, but opioids is a problem. But not only that, these synthetic, opioids that are coming into the market, or they're taking veterinary tranquilizers and adding it to fentanyl. That's just nuts. That's above and beyond what you're responsible for in your practice. So the fourth, telemedicine temporary ruling extends controlled substance prescribing flexibilities through the end of 2026. At the same time, DOJ enforcement is accelerating, not easing. So the details will be on page 6 of the article. And so to pull this up again, I will show you maybe. Did I have it there? Here it is. So if we're going to get to page, this is the article, if you will, the publication, and I'm going to go to page 6. Let's see what happens. DEA, jointly with HHS, is now issuing a fourth temporary rule to prevent what has been commonly referred to as telemedicine cliff, the reinstatement of the pre-pandemic restrictions imposed by the CSA, which could potentially and abruptly limit patient access to care until really there's a final set of regulations. DEA registration, record keeping, and security requirements. This has got to be really part of your modus operandi, if you will. There's the Rate High Act and Controlled Substances Act. I'll show you them in a minute, but involve at least one in-person medical evaluation when prescribing, and it also establishes accepted categories of telemedicine, where a practitioner may prescribe a controlled substance for a patient despite having never evaluated that patient in person, provided that, among other things, such practice is in accordance with applicable federal and state laws. So this is like a very big deal. Let me go back now. So yeah, Teva Pharmaceuticals, 425 million they had to pay. Omnicare, CVS, almost $1 billion. False Claims Act. Artificial intelligence is going to be the next. They're 24/7, 365. It's a big deal. This was in a journal, Agentic AI's next iteration, super artificial intelligence to teams of specialized agents. What this means. Artificial intelligence is moving beyond standalone large language model wrappers towards collection of specialized AI agents, not people. Artificial intelligence computer agents that reason, act, and collaborate together to achieve complex outcomes. Try and digest that. Essentially, from my technical knowledge, all these different AI programs there are different ones based on specialty that can interact and then reason, act, and collaborate to achieve an outcome. Artificial intelligence is no longer a hypothetical risk. Department of Justice has already resolved a criminal healthcare fraud investigation involving AI-driven Medicare Advantage enrollments and kickbacks. AI-assisted coding, enrollment, and autonomous agents can create false claim act exposure if errors occur at scale. Blind reliance on AI without human oversight, it's just nuts. I'm older than most of you, but you just can't, you cannot, artificial intelligence cannot be left in charge of your business or practice, period. Courts and regulators are now applying traditional fraud doctrines to autonomous systems often after the damage is done. And there's a recent Amazon versus Perplexity, but essentially the case where autonomous agents can interact with online platforms such as Amazon as if they were humans. This raises the concerns about how courts will apply existing contract and fraud laws to systems operating independently of their creators. It's just like Star Trek here for in real life. Companies lacking clear agent boundaries may need to redefine their legal pressure. Whistleblowers. These are also drivers. False Claim Act enforcement is fueled by insiders. QTAM filings are at record levels, and healthcare fraud remains the largest source of recoveries. Attorney General Bondi, today is February 4. I don't know, it seemed like sometime in the past week there was $1 million awarded to a whistleblower who could call it, his name was anonymous. Your documentation, emails, contracts, internal messages, these are not private. They are potential exhibits. The reality for healthcare professionals, DOJ is using data analytics, AI, and interagency cooperation. Civil and criminal allegations can be run in parallel. Physicians don't, even if you know that it's only a civil False Claim Act exposure, don't drop your guard, because this stuff, at the whim of the prosecutor, can turn criminal. Physicians, executives, and organizations are personally exposed. Compliance failures are increasingly framed as fraud. So that if these are an accident or if you don't have a proper compliance program in your business, practice, hospital system, where you're importing from other countries, you can get dinged. If you're in healthcare, the Department of Justice is not just targeting the industry; they're going after you. Prevention can save you financially. Maybe it can keep you out of prison. Healthcare risk management. Let's go through here. This is a great tool. Healthcare risk management, clinician.com. And it's a course that you can go online, but this all explains as to, what they do. I'm trying to see if I have if there's billing questions, if their executive summary, Department of Justice is targeting the healthcare industry for False Claims Act enforcement, even as it backs off on other industries. Risk managers, so to assess compliance programs for any points of vulnerability. Gender affirming care, that's crazy. And diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are going to be scrutinized. In the year 2026, who would have thought that this is going to be a problem? Speaker programs and vacations are another focus. You need to act on all this yesterday, because it's a very big deal. I don't know how to impress upon you the importance of trying to see if I can come down here to find a contact information. Otherwise, you're going to left me to go to, let's see, healthcare risk management. Relias is LLC here. Relias Media and its predecessor companies. Okay. And so I hope you take this seriously. Clinician.com is a periodical where they had this particular article, but this is real stuff. There's a company called ICD-10 Monitor, achieving compliant Medicare billing by focusing on what the government monitors on. Proactive review of compensation structures, coding practices, telehealth workflows, and artificial intelligent governance is no longer optional. This is, your rear is naked and blowing in the wind there. It's part of risk management, full stop. The AMA even came out with a medical coding. And let's see here if I have that anywhere. Maybe, yeah, maybe no. Nope. I thought I did. Maybe down here. You're expecting to be indicted, what to do first. Okay. What you want to do first is get legal representation. I was hoping to come up with, no, can't do it. This Medicare coding, basically the government at private insurers audits have revealed unfortunate cases of fraudulent, abusive. Let me see if I can make this maybe not bigger. Let's see if I can run my mouse. Yes. Okay. Government and private insurers have revealed unfortunate cases of fraudulent abuse of billing practices. You deserve to be paid for the medical care you provide, but it's essential that you avoid improper billing practices and steer clear of trouble. When it comes to medical coding errors, they fall into broad categories: fraud and abuse. The former involves fraud, intentional misrepresentation. The latter means the falsification was an innocent mistake, but nonetheless representative. According to the AMA's principle of CPT coding edition, an example of abuse could be coding for a more complex of a service than what was performed. In other words, it's upcoding. to get more money. But the extra 25, $50,000 that you may get is not worth them coming to knock on your front door. I hope that you have found this helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I wish all of you a good day.